Hello, glad you can join us for another episode of Let's Talk Change. My name is Debbie, and I'm just hanging out around the water cooler here to take your questions on organizational change management. So today's question is an interesting one. Normally, I get asked, how do you get laggards, those end users that just don't want to adopt, that don't want to change? How do you get them to change? Today's question, though, is about senior leadership. And how do you get senior leadership to kind of open their eyes and see that you have to make a change? So in this case, it's the users or the management level that wants to change, but their leadership is saying, look, this is how we do our business. This is how we run things. And we don't see a reason to change, right? It's the old, it's if it's not broken, don't fix it adage. So they're asking, how can you create a positive sense of urgency with resistant stakeholders when it comes to change? So let's take a look. Okay, so there are definitely some things you want to consider if you're looking at approaching your stakeholders, your senior leadership team, to affect some sort of change that they may not currently be open to. The first thing you want to consider is, what is your leadership culture? And this is especially critical if, let's say, it's a family business or certain businesses that have been around for a really long time that may be well established in their processes, where you have to go through red tape just to make any sort of minor change. And here you're trying to make a major change. So look historically at the type of culture, the type of leadership that your organization has had, because that will influence how you proceed moving forward. So it's not necessarily just about getting them to see what's happening today. Sometimes you get set in your ways, and that's true for any human being, right? We all get set in our ways. We like our habits. We know what works, and we just like to stick with what we know. And the other thing to note, just like you might have laggards or slow adopters at the user level, kind of the individual contributor end user level in your organization, that same is true for leadership in many cases. Because honestly, when it comes down to it, we are all just human beings. And pushing back and resisting change is simply a normal human reaction. So you really want to consider the human element of this, right? Maybe they're just scared. They're accountable for your organization's overall success. And anytime they take a risk, they're putting the business at stake, right? So the stakes are even higher when it comes to making a change and agreeing to a change and affecting a change at the leadership level. So it can absolutely be scary for a senior leadership to all of a sudden want to, turn left or turn right and make a pivot in how they're running their business. But on the flip side of that, you don't have to wait until something is completely broken to raise the stakes of it might still be inefficient, right? Think about it this way. 20 years ago, we didn't have cell phones. 20 years ago, most communication outside of email was done over a fax machine. Now, both of those, are still ways of doing business, but they're not really efficient, right? It's much more efficient to email a document or scan a document or send it in a chat. It's much more efficient to have your cell phone and be able to take it wherever you go so that you never miss a phone call. So it doesn't mean it's broken. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist anymore, but it's just not as efficient as a way to do business. So those are some of the things you want to start thinking about of how can you prove your case. Data is a great way to do it, right? Stakeholders love data. So data is a great way to prove, how the current way of doing business may not be as efficient, and that your organization can reap even greater rewards by making some changes. Now, a couple of things I want you to consider. Are you looking at pushing a change because you think it's in the best interest of the company? Or are you looking at pushing change because you think it's in best interest for you? Because this is going to be critical. A leadership is going to see right through you if it's something you're doing for personal gain. As an example, let's say outside of COVID, which we know is impacting everyone working from home, let's say your organization's policy was that everyone works in the office and you're trying to vie for working from home permanently, right? That's more of a personal gain. So what you need to do is really consider, how do you sell that as a company gain? What's in it for the company if you get to work from home permanently, right? Maybe your organization is saying, look, as soon as, it's safe for us to open our office doors, everyone goes back to the office. That's just how we do business, right? It's how we've worked for the last 40 years. So obviously, if you enjoy working from home, that's more of a personal gain for you, but how can you spin it so that it's also a gain for the company? That's going to be critical, because if it's only what's in it for you, your leadership's never going to buy in to what you're trying to sell them. So you really want to address the change, the value, the rewards that you can get from the BDM, which is business decision makers' point of view. So what is in it for your CEO or CIO or whoever you're pitching this idea to? Maybe it's only your manager that you need to pitch this to. So think about what the value is from their standpoint. Why would they care, right? If you can show your CEO that, you can save, a certain amount of dollars, that you're going to be more productive, you can be more efficient. What are those gains that they're going to get from allowing you to work from home or whatever that change is? And then always look at the pros and cons and make sure you're going to the table expecting them to push back. Make sure you know what those pushback statements will be so that you can proactively address them, right? The best thing that you can do is be prepared for someone to say no and say, look, I know what you're thinking. I know this might be hard, but hey, let me just hear me out and let me talk through this. Because the more you can counteract them before they have a chance to push back, the better you're going to make your case. So on the next slide, I wanted to share 4 steps that you can take as you're preparing to go to your senior leadership to propose a change that they may not currently be open to. Okay, so I'm going to introduce 4 steps to you, and each one of these steps was written with a series of questions in mind. These are some questions you want to consider as you're pulling together a plan to go to your stakeholders. So the very first step is knowing the team. This means knowing who your leadership is. Who are those decision makers? Who are you trying to influence? And then in turn, who are their key influencers? Because even a C-level group of stakeholders in your organization has outside influencers. These could be mentors. They could be other organizations that they look up to because they're trying to strive to follow the same path that other organizations have taken. These could be internal stakeholders. Maybe they're looking at marketing to understand market share and what the market looks like. So know who their key influencers are, because you want to be able to relate to them. And I'll bring up on step 3 how you might be able to bring those key influencers in to help you be allies when presenting your change to your stakeholders. It's also important to understand the organizational relationship between leaders and employees. Is it more of an open culture where employees are welcomed to present ideas and share new ways of working and new ways of doing things? Or is it more a top-down driven, this is the way we run our business type of mentality? Because again, that may inform what you're up against when you are presenting out to your leadership. And it's really important to understand what's important to them. What is going to drive them to make certain decisions? Now, obviously, every senior executive, right, they care about profit, productivity, gaining market share, brand recognition, brand loyalty, but really understand what's important to your leadership. Because again, those are some of the points that you want to be able to drive home when it comes to presenting a change out to your stakeholders. So it's really important in step 2 to do your research. And what I invite you to do is take a look back at what was the last big change in your organization. How did it go? What went well? Were there any problems? Who was impacted? How was the solution or how was the problem solved? Kind of really play it out in your mind, on paper, whatever you want to do, but really understand, because what you want to do is be able to tap in to something that worked really well. Like, hey, Mr. President of our company, you know, last year we made this change, we upgraded our operating system, or we changed this business process. And as a result, we were able to save X amount of dollars. And I feel like we can do the same thing with this new change, right? So or, hey, we had this change, it didn't go very well, but here's how I think we counteract that with this new change. And here's how this new change can be better. Because if a change went really awry before, that could be one of the reasons why your stakeholders are not as open to readily accepting changing something else. So you really want to play on that. Whether it worked well or not, you can build that into your story. And as I talked about in step 1, really think about the ROI. What will this change bring to your stakeholders? Remember, it's all about presenting the value from the decision maker's point of view. And where you can, bring in data. Leadership loves data. They like to see numbers and metrics and charts and graphs and anything you can do to prove your case, maybe what some other companies have done, how this new technology or process is taking over the marketplace, and how it's important for your organization to stay competitive. But this is about bringing in all of those pieces into your plan. So step 3 is about gathering the people together. So these are your allies, right? Who are the people that can help you present out to your stakeholders? So these could be trusted advisors, people within your organization that you're confiding in to say, here's what I'm looking to do. What ideas do you have? What kind of questions do you anticipate? This is really key because when you can do this, when you can gather a group of trusted advisors, you can role play. And this really allows you to practice and presenting in front of a group of people. It also allows you to get some of those pushback questions so that you can be better prepared going into meeting with your stakeholders. So this allows you to identify the right messaging and the right structure. And an important question to ask yourself is who is best served to lead the discussion with your stakeholders. Now, even if it's your idea, even if you do all of the data, sometimes there might be a better influencer in your organization. Remember in step 1, we talked about your key influencers. So if you know, let's say that John, the VP of sales, is someone that your CEO looks to whenever they want to make a big decision, and John is on board with you, maybe it's good to either have John in the room or have John kick off the presentation and do some of the kind of big pieces of the presentation and then hands it over to you, to give some more data insights or personal perspectives. And I get it, right? If this is your baby, you might want to be the one that leads and does everything, and you're the one that wants the pat on the back. But remember on the previous slide, we talked about, are you doing this for personal gain or company gain? And if you're really doing it in the best interest of the company, you really have to be open to bringing someone in alongside you to present, especially if they are a key influencer and especially if they can help nudge your executive leadership team in the direction that you want to go. And then lastly, it's about putting the proposal together and getting the meeting with your stakeholders. So always tie it back to your company's mission, vision, your core values, right? Because every organization has those, right? Look it up. If you're not sure, you should know if you're working for an organization, but if not, look at your website, understand what your company stands for, understand what your mission is and your values are, and then absolutely tie this proposal for change back to those core values. Because again, you want to show how this is really in the best interest of the company. And if you see that WIIFM, the WIIFM, that stands for what's in it for me, and that goes back to tying the value of this change that you're presenting back to your key stakeholders. And in the end, you want to make your senior leadership or your management, whoever you're presenting this to, you want to make them look like the heroes. Right? Now, again, you're the underdog here. You're the underlying behind the scenes hero, and absolutely, you'll end up getting recognition down the road. But putting a big change out there is really about making a difference for the organization. And the more you can make your, IT leadership or your CEO or CIO, wherever that is, look like the hero, all the better, right? And then, you know what, if they're still hesitant, why not offer a pilot or trial of, hey, let's test out this new process, or let's just do a pilot with this new technology and let's just see how it goes, and then offer up some clear goals, some next steps, and offer up, hey, 30 days from now, I will come back and report our findings. So it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. If they're somewhat interested but still on the fence, offer to do some sort of pilot, offer to gather more insights, really take that next proactive step to showing your leadership how you can take it to the next level. So hopefully that gives you some ideas of how to create a proposal out to your stakeholders when it comes to getting those laggards at the C-level, right, your upper management laggards, to be open to some sort of change. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Is there something that you did that worked really well, or maybe a question that you have of you're kind of stuck in a certain way? Is there something else you can do? Add them to the comments below, and we'll get back to you on those. As always, check out some additional videos, and if you have a question that you'd like me to consider for one of these videos, go ahead and submit that to aka.my/question. With that, we will log off for today. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.